Greetings travellers, Nightmare060 welcomes you here once again. This is my second video towards Rational Roundtable, continuing the discussion of defining God and proving it without using the Bible. In his last video, which was a response to mine, he did set out a basic definition of what he describes both a lowercase g God and a capital G God. The former, if I have understood him correctly, is one of several deities presiding some form of control over worldly affairs, with the latter being a supreme deity who created and controls the universe. I would say that we are off to a fantastic start in this discussion. And so that this definition, which I will go with, is reasonable cause to continue on and move on to the next part of this discussion. It is worth mentioning that Rational Roundtable's video, which I shall post as a video response and link to in the description bar below, he has not made a positive argument about the existence of God based on this definition as of yet. He has said that he will make a video based on this, making a positive assertion of the existence of a capital G God, as far as I'm aware, in a future video, but he has not done so yet, and so I will not pretend that he has made any argument in favour as such. Now on to the main meat of the argument. As Rational Roundtable states, there are many atheists and theists alike who, as we all know, will both agree on the validity of studying science and natural forces through methodological naturalism. The difference being the belief, and lack thereof, of a deity who may be influencing these natural events. And so this leads us nicely on to the next portion of my argument. Now that we have defined the what, we now need to talk about the how in this case. I don't mean to sound like I'm moving the goalposts here. I feel this is an important part of a debate or discussion of any existence of any gods, and I shall explain in more detail further on in the video. I shall return to this drumstick as a visual aid for my argument. Now, with this drumstick, I may not be able to provide an exact source for this one particular drumstick's exact moment of creation, but what I can do is I can supply many sources as to the general creation of drumsticks. I can supply websites, photos, videos, including documentaries, of various sorts on how things are made, and just generally go into detail in outlining the entire creative process that goes into making this drumstick. I can also talk about how they'd be obtaining the correct wood, and I'd also talk about the inking of the names on here, what kind of pen could be used, what kind of pen they might use, and the general wear and tear that, while you may not be able to see in great detail on this video, do happen when being used. Where am I going with this? With methodological naturalism, we hold off all presumptions until we can gather and examine enough information to give us a reasonable conclusion to the question or hypothesis that we are asking. We use whatever tools we have available to us to update our knowledge when new technology and new methods of studying come along. Nothing in science is set in stone, and we can only ever say, this is what it's like to the best of our knowledge. So how does God fit into this picture? What kind of properties would God need to be manipulative or creative of our universe? If we are to say that a god or gods are influential in any sort of manner over our universe, without some sort of mechanism through which a god or gods can work through, we have no way of suggesting that one god holds more validity than any other, or even if they are there at all. After all, if we are talking in complete abstracts, I won't go into the full detail of Russell's teapot or the flying spaghetti monster, but if we are not defining any sort of properties and leaving them up in the air, we can just use any sort of imaginary being or device that can exist completely outside of the realms of all knowledge and just does it, is essentially magic. Now, one could make the argument, or the Rational Roundtable has not made this argument himself, one could make the argument that there can be multiple theories or definitions or even possible mechanisms for processes in nature. I know this quite well through studying psychology. Let's take aggression, for example. We can talk about both the naturalistic explanation for theories of aggression in people, or antisocial personality disorder, and we can also talk about sociological definitions. I'm probably getting that term wrong, by the way. The point is that these can look in different ways to help different people, as their situation may be different. Different people may arrive at having an antisocial personality disorder for different reasons. It is equally valid to say that in some people there is a physical brain defect with motor neurons being less connected to particular areas of the brain which control aggressive behaviour, and it is also valid to say that some experiences in life will actually affect people when they are modelling their own behaviour after acts of violence in their own family. These serve a purpose to understand the complexity of the human mind and indeed the world around us, so that we can be best effective in helping people who suffer from these to get better and live normal lives without having to suffer through antisocial personality disorder. And like my drumstick, we can perform experiments and we can perform studies to show whether these particular theories or ideas have more or less validity than others. Of course there are criticisms, but that is what science is for. So when it comes to deities, what do we have? To the best of my knowledge, we do not have any insight or any method of finding out the properties of one or more gods that affect our universe, let alone to create one to begin with. From what I understand, many theists like Kenneth Miller, and I don't know this applies to Rational Roundtable, but many theists believe that God is a kind of watchmaker. He sets up the laws of the universe, oils the machine, and then sets it off for it to work at its own devices and not getting involved. And this is essentially a deistic God. I don't know the details of why Kenneth Miller considers him a Catholic or rather a deist, but that is a topic for another time. However, if the world is explainable through all natural mechanisms, and God is just the one who actually started this process, I would ask why we need a God at all. What purpose does a God explanation actually serve in helping expand our knowledge and understanding of the universe? Gods for the ancients were often symbolic fables, and the best explanations that with the current limited technology, given what little knowledge they had of science and the pareidolia effect and so many others. It would make sense to them to put an anthropomorphic being in control of these powerful natural events that control their lives, and also to enforce particular laws or desired sets of behaviour. As I explained in my video, which was a rebuttal to shock of God, and proving how the concept of gods can be explained through the pareidolia effect, we as humans are programmed to identify human features and anthropomorphic factors in everything, because that is how we can distinguish a loving parent from a tiger, or even a loving parent from someone who is abusive. Because we can spot these different characteristics, we can distinguish, and it generally helps our process of living. But now we have explanations for the ever-increasing effects around and areas on a natural world, including a better understanding of ourselves. So what was once real mystical, the reality of mystical forces have been replaced with knowledge that we can understand and work with. There is indeed quite a lot of what we don't know about the universe as it stands, that is for certain. But just as thunder and lightning is no longer a strike of Thor's hammer on the anvil in Valhalla, or an angry Zeus throwing his thunderbolts, I think it is more likely that a naturalistic explanation for our current gaps in knowledge, without the need for deities of any sort, is sufficient. Could there be a God of some sort under the definition that Rational Roundtable has given? Well, considering the properties are currently up in the air, it is not impossible, that's for sure. However, given what we already know about the universe, unless we suddenly find some new abstract law of physics that turns everything on its head, I find this prospect to be too unlikely to hold any reason to believe. After all, as I stated in my last video, the more we outline the properties and methods of any sort of deity, the more we can definitely say that a god or gods do or do not exist. So the best and most honest answer that I myself can possibly give right now to these unanswered questions of the universe is a simple I don't know. And personally, I think that this explanation, until we can get more data, is sufficient for now. I look forward to your future videos and any responses you may have to this video. I thank you for your time and safe travels.